Hello, friend. Season
4.
The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from a high desert encampment on the frontier of our agrarian hoplite republic. This is a variety program for happy warriors who are getting some seriously bad vibes from the deranged post-Christian technocracy. Grab a tankard of yak's milk and join us by the campfire as Sumo and Cavi return to shake your surveillance, expel your parasites, and generally have a good time. Are you ready? Stand by.
Mystical American Patriots Society, now available in 3 dimensions.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Yes, today we are doing, it's a merged hybrid show. It's kind of video, but kind of not. Cavi's here on video, and I'm here showing you images. Say hi, Cavi. He's there.
Hi, Cavi.
There you go. He's there, and I am here showing you images, but I am, again, for the holiday season, away from my standard setup in the Orbital Podcasting Studio. So I am, again, down on Earth, on terra firma, and I am doing some important work down here in relation to the holiday season and actually helping out Santa Claus. So it's one of those things where, I don't want to oversell it, but it is kind of like one of those Hallmark movies where I help an adolescent magician discover the true meaning of Christmas, that sort of thing. Something like that is happening. So that's why I'm not in my studio today, but I still wanted to show you some images and talk about some things. Cavi, how are you? We're going to talk about so much today. We're going to talk about transsexuals in history, probably. We're going to talk about Erika Kirk, the Jacob Sparks or Savage article. I keep calling him Sparks. Hobby shop Americans, so much stuff. And we've got Cavi's Christmas trivia coming up at the end.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, tell us about, what everyone's appetite for your Christmas trivia. What have you got for us?
I have 2 major Christmas topics that most people kind of gloss over and that are a lot more complicated and interesting.
Okay. So you cut out just a little bit there. Say it again.
I've got 2 sort of major topics from the original First Christmas Story that most people kind of gloss over, but are more complicated and interesting than you might think.
Beautiful. And I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if I'll know the answers to this Christmas trivia, but we're going to all learn together. Okay.
It's not so much trivia questions, just I'm going to teach you some things.
Okay, great. Well, let's see if we can put it in the form of a trivia question for the holidays, for games. It's like a white elephant, but with
well, I I got an
this conspiracy.
exercise for you, so that's kind of close.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, guys, is are you familiar, Cavi? I'm gonna see if I can put it on the screen. See, can you see this, Cavi? If I do this, can you see this?
Compact.
Compact, yeah. Did you read the Compact article? The now famous one called "The Lost Generation" by Jacob Savage.
I did not.
Okay, well, it made the rounds on many places today. It was actually, I think it got in the New York, not the New York Times, but the New Yorker or something like that. It was shared far and
Nobody
wide.
reads the New Yorker.
No one does. Ross Duhat, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's a dumb name. Ross Duhat, the fellow that's like just conservative enough. He counts as a conservative person to have on the New York Times. He wrote an article about this article. And it's about people got big mad about it for understandable reasons. It was published December 15th, 2025, as you can see here. And it is about Jacob Savage's experiences growing up as a millennial, being pushed out of work because he was a white man. Now, I find that a little bit humorous. Not because I'm like mean, or whatever, but just because Jacob Sparks looks like this. Can you see him, Cavi? Can you see this guy?
Yep.
Now, this is not a white man, in my opinion. This is a guy complaining about, and this is the story all over. This is. I don't want to bring him into the mud again. I don't want to drag the lovely and talented but also dead Smokestack into the the old version before he became you into the mud again. But I would ask, is also Smokestack white? It's just, you can't see me, but I'm doing my hands a very like pensive like shrug, like. And I know that none of you have ever seen him because he doesn't have a physical body. He never did until he was turned into a cat and given a different personality. But Smokestack he's not this swarthy by any means. I would guess this man, if I saw this man, Jake, you can see my cursor going around his face. If I saw this man on the street, can you see me doing that? Is it still sharing this window? I can't tell. Of the man.
It's still sharing the picture of the dude who looks like he's from Reddit.
Brilliant. Yes, he looks like he's from Reddit. Now, if I showed you a picture of this man, if I saw this man on the street, I would assume he was Latino. Nothing wrong with Latinos. Love Latinos. Great people. But I would not call him a white guy. I would say maybe he's even from the Levant. He might be Middle Eastern. Maybe he's one of the Druze person. I know I have a friend that's a Druze. A member of the Druze religion, and he looks kind of like this. He's a little darker, but not much. Which is the great irony of all this, and something I was trying to get at with the last paywall episode with Walt Bismarck, is that the funny thing is that a lot of the rage and outrage concerning the treatment of white people is actually coming from people that are questionably, they're certainly not Germanic. Let's put it that way. They're certainly not. No one would call them Aryans, right? That's the thing. No one would call them Aryans. Can you see this, Cabby? Who's this guy? Do you know this guy?
This the guy from Rocky 4 or something?
That's Dolph Lundgren, I think is how you say his last name. He's in a bunch of movies in the 80s. Now, that's a white guy. That's an Aryan fellow. Okay? This guy is not that.
But the file says whiteguy.jpg.
I know. That's what I tried to put a question mark, but you know what? Windows doesn't let you put a question mark as in part of your file name.
Nope.
I was gonna go, so I thought about writing underscore question mark, but then I just left it. So Apple will let you put a question mark in your file name. Just saying, Bill Gates. But this is a white guy, okay? This is a white guy. These are like white. This guy is from like, I think, Norway or Sweden. I think Sweden. This guy's from Austria. You know, these
Looks
are
like a
actual.
black and white guy.
Yeah, he's a black and white guy.
But
But this guy is from Mexico. If I had to guess, that's where I would. And again, nothing. But the irony is that this guy seems to be from, I would guess, Mexico. Okay. Nicholas Fuentes is also half Mexican. He's a half Mexican man, and rumors persist that he's actually kind of Jewish. I don't know if that's true. He may be a little Jewish. It doesn't matter. I'm just pointing out that it's strange. It's a strange dichotomy to have so many people. Matt Walsh, the guy on who's the guy? Not Benjamin Netanyahu, but his American little friend. It doesn't matter. He's on the internet, and he's a podcaster, and he is also kind of like swarthy. Not as swarthy as Jacob Savage, but pretty swarthy like. Here's another. Let's look at another man that's leading the cause for white vengeance. Let's look at another man. What about let's see, who are we looking at? Are we still looking at this is the Zoom thing of the Zoom thing of telling me what I'm looking at is very confusing. Okay. Let's look at, how about this one? How about this guy? Let's look at this guy. This is Andrew Torba. Do you see him? Does he look very white to you?
Nope.
No, he doesn't, does he? He looks.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you don't see him? Does he look very white to you? I mean, he doesn't have a lot of melanin. I give him that. Except, I mean, again, this is very dark. For this is what Shakespeare would have called a Moor. Pretty much. This is a dark man by English German standards. This is someone that lived in maybe Wales, maybe Cornwall, like way down to the south. This is maybe a Southern Italian. This is not like what most people would consider a white person. And I find this trend over and over again as Richard Spencer. Remember Richard Spencer of the original? He's very, I mean, or even Mean Mr. Mustache. What about Mean Mr. Mustache, Mr. Hitler? Was he Mr. Aryan? No, he kind of looked, people say he had light blue eyes. I don't even know if that's true. The photos with him are doctored all to hell by different ways, different propagandists. He looks like a brown-haired, brown-eyed man. Again, nothing wrong with any of this. I'm just saying the idea that this is like representative of the Aryan race is kind of a silly. It's just kind of a silly. And so this is Walt Bismarck also. He was a guy, he was on last week on the Paywall episode. He was heavily in the early alt-right days. I think he even hung out with Richard Spencer for a bit. And he, by his own admission, is a very sort of swarthy man who looks kind of like a greasy Greek person. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about any of those people. I'm just saying the idea that this fellow right here, which I hope will come up in a second, is the paragon of white problems, is absurd. It's as absurd, maybe, as people... It's as absurd, maybe, as everyone worrying about a Nazi administration that is hyper focused on doing everything it can possibly do for the Jews, and which is married to Indians. Isn't that silly? It's like a South Park episode. It's like the Nazis are here and they're doing they love the Jews so much, and they're half Indian. And that's like who, and it's like Vivek and all these people. Like none of this, all of these identity games are just have gotten so spiraling out of control. I don't think this guy was a good writer. I think that's why he didn't get hired. That would be my guess. I think that he is using the fact that he was white. Now, did he bring up good points in his articles? Yes, right. I will give him that. He brought up good points in his article. He did a lot of work about statistics and showing that people over the 2010s. Like, here we go. In 2011, the year I moved to Los Angeles, white men were 48% of lower level TV writers. By 2024, they were just 11.9%. The Atlantic's editorial staff went from 53% male and 89% white in 2013 to 36% male and 66% white in 2024, and so forth and so on. White men in Harvard, 39 to 18 and whatever. And he's attributing this to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and all this stuff. And, he gives this big quote here: "The world is not rooting for you. It is, in fact, deliberately rooting against you." Okay. And there's a couple of things I wanted to say that, because I saw a lot of people getting mad about it and being all victim-y about it and being upset. And are people discriminating against white men? And I'm doing that with the biggest of air quotes, because again, Jacob Savage, Andrew Torba. They're not. I went to a hobby shop the other day. Have you been to a hobby shop, Cavi, in a while?
What do you mean, like a specific hobby, or?
Well, in the land of culture in America, where people have leisure time and they have hobby stores where people, they'll be like model train sets and models and magic tricks and stuff like that you can purchase.
There's like a whole bunch of hobbies.
Yeah, there's like a whole aisle for like ladies, the grown women that are really into building really ornate, fancy doll houses, all this kind of stuff, which is the female equivalent of being into trains. By the way, if you're a guy who's autistic, you're into train sets, and the lady they do really intricate, very detailed, kind of obsessive compulsive dollhouse building. Do you have any of those?
We must, but they're probably small businesses, and I've never really seen one. I've seen like those things in bigger stores,
Right.
but
right.
yeah, not specifically what you're talking about.
Right, because Canada doesn't have leisure. It's all work and no play up there.
Yeah, and frozen.
And frozen. And I would describe the type of white people that I have been, again, quotes, white people, that I have been describing thus far: Andrew Torba, Jacob Savage, Nick Fuentes, Adolf Hitler, as hobby shop Americans. If you go into a hobby shop, that's who's there. And again, nothing wrong with it. It's not quite the same demographic as those that go into a store where they sell like Pokemon cards and comic books, but there's overlap. It's not quite the same demographic. The ones in the Pokemon store tend to be fatter, and to the point where they sometimes carry a cane that they've bedazzled, like a bedazzled cane with a dragon's head. Anything to look slightly, and it never works. They all kind of look like the same fat guy, but anything to look unique, right? And I would describe Andrew Torba, and the creator of Gab. He's the guy. I don't think I mentioned that. He's the one that made the Twitter alternative back in the day. And Nick, they're all hobby shop Americans, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, but they're not. I wouldn't describe them. If I was going to, if an angel came down from heaven and they said, "Listen, we're having another flood," and just like Shem, Ham, and Japheth they took wives of different races, allegedly, to preserve all the diversity of the human species. I need you to select a white couple, a brown couple, a black couple, an Asian couple, and whatever else, to make sure that the diversity of humankind that God has made continues on to the future after the second flood. I would not pick either of those people for what the white representative. I think if I presented that guy, if I presented Jacob Savage to Gabriel and said, "Here's the white guy," he'd go, are you trolling me? Why did you bring me someone from Guatemala? Why did you bring me someone from Guatemala? That wasn't what I asked for here, right? That's how I feel about it, first of all. But so these are the people most complaining about it, and that's because they are the most affected by it, and it is not fair. I get it, right? But I just want to be clear on the lines that we're drawing, because that's important. Because blurring all the lines is the chief way that all this stuff spirals out of control into a continual nonsense. So, okay, Cavi is quite Aryan. I know you people haven't seen him, but Cavi is tall, beautiful, and muscular.
Blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah, he's a cat right now, but in his human form. Cavi, I think you're a little younger than this fellow, but I think that you would have lived even harder through that time, and you've done pretty okay for yourself. Yes, would you say? I mean,
Like with finding a job?
Yeah, like financially in your life.
Well, kind of, but I also got kind of lucky and I kind of work for myself at this point.
Right.
So I'm not really your average person.
Right. That's because that's the point. Because you're actually one of these Aryan sort of people. And this is what I was trying to get up with Walt Bismarck, why I had him on, is he talked about the Aryan question and actually the difference in the different groups of white people that we're all just lumping together and their outcomes. And so actually almost this whole time, everyone that has been like what you would consider the Dolph Lundgren, Arnold Schwarzenegger phenotypes have been pretty well fine, which is why, and they're overrepresented in like New England and so forth and so on and so on. I think they're overrepresented in my sort of circle. I was at a Christmas party a few weeks ago, and everyone there is the same age-ish as this article writer of Compact, and everyone there basically has a mansion. Not me, I don't live in a mansion, but all of the they giant plate, they're doing fine. One of them is the CEO of several different things, and they are actually what they like have either like light brown hair or straight up blonde hair. They have blue eyes, sometimes green eyes, and there really is a racial division going on here that's unspoken of. That is playing a huge part in what's happening, I think, because people are mad at white people, but what they've ended up doing is taking it out on light-skinned minorities. This is what I'm going to call Jacob Savage and Andrew Torba and Nicholas Fuentes. They've taken it out on light-skinned minorities and said, you're the white people, even though those people probably would have, even if they would have been the slaves, they wouldn't have had slaves. They would have been the slaves, right? Or an indentured servant at the minimum. And they've all been fine. And actually, all the DEI stuff has tremendously helped married white families of that sort of actual Germanic sort. And I know that's controversial, but just yesterday, one of my friends was telling me that they were starting a new business, and that they'd done is they'd made their wife 51% owner so that they could get all the benefits of the woman-owned business. And almost all the benefits of DEI went to white women. Almost all the benefits of DEI went to white women. It was designed for black people. And then if you look at like who is in charge of the Atlantic magazine, who's writing it, it's all white women, and all of them, almost to a T, have handsome husbands that do something else, work in finance or something. And then they get on there and they tell you that you don't need to be married, which is something Jessica, who was on a few days ago, is big harping on. The people that tell you that you don't need it, they are all of them married, like in many cases housewives with children. And they get on the internet and they tell people patriarchy, men bad, and then they are happily married for 30, 40, 50 years to their whole life. And it really is sort of it is a problem. It is a disingenuous a lot of it has to do with people are lumping these things together that really aren't. I agree with people that white should not be capitalized, and neither should black, honestly, because it's too large of a category. It's simply not. That's not how people, if they were to tribe up into different groups, they would not tribe up together. In most cases, that would be more granular than that. And this is very uncomfortable for people, because it is sort of they get to sit on there and they get to go white supremacy bad, while having all the best jobs and using diversity, equity, inclusion to just give it to their wives under the banner that they're helping minorities. And then they kind of stomp on swarthy Mexicans who take all the brunt of it. Right. And that's kind of that is a problem. I think all the DEI stuff should be stopped. I am a fair white person. I do not want people to be disadvantaged in any way. I think hiring should be done pretty much. What you should do is all the hiring should be done, your name should be blotted out and all your characteristics. They look at your qualifications, maybe some of the stuff you've done, and then they interview. Then they have to actually see you, I guess. But maybe you could even do that with like a mask on. I don't know, just to see. I think it should be a blind thing that happens. So that this is not even an issue. But as long as the DEI is in place, understand that almost all of the advantages are going to upper class white women, and almost none of them to other people. And that's number one. Number two, the problem with this is he's just complaining. And it's Bronze Age Pervert had a nice thing on this article. He said, all you're going to get is the world's smallest violin. No one is ever going to, if you position yourself as like, I'm a Mexican, which Jacob Savage looks to be, people would care, because people think that anyone that isn't like I said last time, there really is a psychology of like white supremacy, in that most people assume that if you're a tall white guy with nothing, you're always fine. And you kind of always are. Like Cavi, for example, he didn't need the world to give it. He just made his own job. He made his own job. And you know what else he did that was very Aryan? He married someone non-white to make more like white Aryan babies in other races.
And as soon as we're done here, I'm making her 51% owner of my business.
Are you?
Oh, I'm 100% looking into that. I didn't even think of that, but that's genius.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I can probably get women and minority stuff now if I do that.
Exactly. I shared a picture in our group chat, our Telegram chat, and I hope everyone comes to be on the Telegram, and you can do so by joining the Gumroad or the Patreon or the Substack. Although I don't know how the Substack one works yet to get the Telegram thing. I'll work on that. But that's where you can see paywall content, is any of those three places. But in the Telegram chat, I shared a picture of from when I was trick-or-treating with my kids. And we went to the, just down the road from me, one of the nicest neighborhoods in America. And it is set up like a little hamlet, like a little European village. It's all walkable. There's people bicycle to work. I mean, there's like a bakery in the center of town. It's stupid in how nice it is. And almost to a T, every white man there has a vaguely non-white wife. Because actual Aryans have never in the history of humanity been worried about racial purity. They go everywhere and just sort of sow their whiteness into other races. And it works. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. He had a son with a Latino housemaid, and he looks like some sort of Greek god, just like his father did. Actually, what they tell you, they say, and this is part of the PSYOP, they say that those traits are recessive. They're not. I have blue eyes. 2/3 of my children have blue eyes, and the third one has a sort of greenish eyes, and my wife has brown. By all genetic things we learned in school, they should all be brown, but it's not true. My son has vaguely, it's not quite, it's blondish hair, and it's going as it grows up from baby to, it's sort of oscillating between more brown and more blonde, back and forth. I don't know what it'll turn out to be when he's a grown-up. But that's what they all do. We were walking around with some of my daughter's friends, and the very white girls and their mother was from Colombia, right? And their dad was an extremely sort of Prussian fellow. So this is the thing, and just like Cavi has Chinese. That's what they're not concerned about, but because they're not worried about their genes are kind of dominant in a way. Blue-eyed NFL quarterbacks have an enormous win advantage. People did the statistics on this one. If you're an NFL team and they're playing in the Super Bowl, if one team has a quarterback with blue eyes and the other one does not, you are something like 79% better off. It's 79% likely just on that alone. Everything else that the blue-eyed guy is going to win, which is crazy. Look up how many governors and stuff are like. There is this sort of idea took hold in Hitler's Germany, not for nothing. It didn't come out of nowhere. It was plausible to people, and a lot of people, like Mr. Mustache, wanted to glom themselves onto that idea, and to be like, "That's me too," which is kind of what Andrew Torba was doing, right? And why he's so mad, because he's not one of those people. And this is not a, I guess it does. It sounds very racist. It is racist. I mean, we're talking about difference in races. But it's not like a mean thing. I don't want anyone to feel bad. I'm just trying to explain the psychology of what's happening. And that actually, most of the people that you would see as super white are kind of immune from all this, because the system is kind of set up for that. And actually their wives, they've used the diversity and equity inclusion to just give things to their wives instead of black people. And like I was talking with Walt, I don't even know if it's conscious, to be honest. That's the crazy thing. They really do believe this sort of Haginal line we were talking about in the show. The Haginal line is a series of boundaries in Western Europe that divides different historical marriage patterns and cultural and family living patterns, basically towards individualism in your own life and universal ideals. That's the magic formula. Versus tribalism in your life and local ideals, which is like most of Eastern Europe, most of Africa, most of the Middle East, and so forth and so on. What the people inside have done for thousands of years, if they have lived extremely individual style lives without a great deal of connection to tradition, they have some, but not to the extent that other people do. They've lived in nuclear families, and they have had universal claims to morality. They say this is true for me and everybody. Or it should be. They should see, and if they don't see it, we're going to make them see it. And that mindset is still happening continually. Like I said, what they've basically done is they've taken their ideas of right and wrong and how your brain should feel and function and your emotions, and they put that into therapy and basically made it the definition of medically correct. And if you don't sync up with that one, you're not, which is why there is truth in what the leftists say. Like, this is white, like this idea of what's hysterical and what isn't, what's a mental illness and what isn't, is culturally determined, but they get to set what it is. That's the, and so a lot of this is, it's more complicated than, and the other thing, which is what Bap said, nothing in this article, this long article he wrote that got so much traction, matters. Because all he's saying is, he wanted to be a TV writer. And he's saying, I didn't get to write on my TV shows because, they were, the white, they were not hiring white people. Again, he's a Mexican or something like it, in my opinion.
Is he any good at writing for TV?
I don't know. That's the thing. He's probably fine. For the slop that gets on TV now, he's probably fine. I don't know. Maybe he's a genius. I don't know. This article was well written.
Yeah, but maybe he also sucks.
That's right. But my point is, all he's saying in this is like, well, why didn't we get to write the shit TV shows? Why Why didn't we get to do the dumb research about, like, nothing in this is like, if we'd been in charge, we'd have made it better. It's just whining about, I didn't get to make the crap. Because the movies from like 2010 to now have mostly been crap, as have most of the TV. Not all of them, some have been very good. I've been watching Pluribus. It's pretty fun. It's pretty good. I don't know if it's going to work out at the end of the season to like hit the high, to like stick the landing, maybe. But it's been pretty good. And so, but not, there's been shining gems in the sea of crap, but most of it's been crap. And all he says is here is that he makes no case that if you'd hired me and other quote unquote white people instead, we'd have made something better. No case at all. He just says he's just mad. He's upset that he got pushed out of making the crap. And I see, here's the thing. Does he have a burning desire to make TV? No one was giving me a job in the media, but I made my own media, right? No one gave me a book deal. I've built my own writing, because if you want to do it, if you actually have a burning desire to produce art and put it out there, you do it anyway. You could have got your own camcorder as far back as 2001 and earlier and made your own TV shows and put it on the internet, and people did. And a lot of them got really big on YouTube and stuff because they had a burning. Jacob Savage never made anything. What you do, if you actually have that passion in you and no one gives you the opportunity, is you say, fine, I'll just make it myself because I actually care about making it. And so it's like, okay, there are less quote unquote white people hired at Harvard now. What has Harvard put out in the last forever that is worth anything? The sciences have produced almost nothing in a long time. All of the innovation has come out of tech companies, mostly, almost zero from universities, if we're honest. They've been mediocre and sort of slop for a long time, and the only people they hire are company men who just go along to get along. The true innovators, a visionary, has not been welcome at Harvard or Princeton or any of these places in ages because they overturn things. Vox Day, again, voxday.net, if you aren't familiar with him, I have my differences with him. I think if he knew about me, which he doesn't, he would say, I don't care, which is fine. That's what he should say. That's what he says about most things. He says, I don't care. And he is an example of an Aryan, not quite, but he's got those genes from someone else. So his mother comes from a Native American line. And then his father was like this Northern Italian fellow of the Lombard generation, of the Lombard lineage, if I have that correct. And, he got a lot of those genes. And he decided he would make his own comic book publishing place. And he's done so, and it works well. He publishes his own books. He's even been working on, I think and again, I have my issues with him, but he is a smart guy, very smart fellow. And he's put out a mathematical proof, which I think is very convincing, that evolution as described cannot work because the fixed mutation rate is not fast enough. Basically, he went through and he examined high selection pressure events like the Black Death, various wars, which killed off a lot of people. And you would think, well, only certain kinds of genes survived and they should get fixed in the population and remain there. Because if you're going to evolve, you'd have a mutation. That mutation needs to stay, right? If you just have a mutation and then it goes away, like if it's helpful for survival, it needs to stay. And that's what they call a fixed mutation. And he looked at the fixed mutation rates in bacteria and in humans and in other animals. And he's basically, it's just far too slow. I think he's only about 10% of the genes from the Black Death have actually been fixed, given 300 generations of people. If you extrapolate that out, which is generous because fixation slows down over time, it doesn't speed up. Usually it's supposed to get fixed very quickly because you needed it to survive that catastrophic event. What you would get is that to get from the amount of DNA difference between a chimpanzee or something like it to us would be something on the order of like 40 trillion years, or older than the universe, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Something different had to happen. That doesn't mean it's the Bible. That doesn't mean anything. It just means there's a big problem with this theory, and he's done that on totally his own. And that's the kind of person, Raymond Damadian, one of my heroes, he invented the MRI machine. He did it almost totally on his own. Only after he was given, like, he's like, hey, this works. He built a prototype. Did people give him funding? If you need people to give you something, you don't have it in you. That's my point. If you need people to give you something, you don't have it in you. You either make it yourself or you don't. And the article should have been, well, if we'd had this, this would at least have been a reason. If we'd had this, we'd have made better TV. But he never says that. He just says, I wish I could have participated in making the bad TV. So I don't think it's a very compelling argument. I also don't think Jacob Sparks is white. I don't see it. And I don't think that the grouping everyone together as white people is really telling us the story. I don't think that's telling us the story, because again, this guy, Dolph, is a white guy. Not so much. He's not black. And again, there's nothing wrong with his skin. He's fine. It's fine. It's just not, these are not the same race of people, is my point. They're just not. And that's okay. And yes, I did choose a very flattering white guy. But whatever. Dolph is amazing. He's hilarious. One, this guy got every genetic advantage possible. He got like a PhD from MIT in chemistry, and then decided he would be a bodybuilder, and then also became a movie star. Like, ridiculous. Some people really are given everything, and some people are not. Right? And that's okay. That's okay. That's just the way the world works. Maybe if reincarnation is true, you get another chance later and you get to be a different person. I don't think necessarily that's very likely, but who knows? Who knows? Cavi, did that make any sense?
Yes.
Was I too mean?
No, but I don't know. Those people look kind of white to me. But I guess everything's so blurred now.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. It is blurry. The people have used the terms. I'm just saying Benjamin Franklin would not have called Jacob Savage a white man. He wouldn't. It wouldn't have happened. He made a little map of places that were not white, and it included like southern France. He was like, it's just not, it's a different thing. Okay. Now, before we get into the Christmas trivia, Cavi, people mourn differently. Do you see this? This is a lady in mourning.
Yep.
She is so upset. This is, if you're not watching, this is a picture of Erika Kirk. This is a picture of Erika Kirk 3 months after her husband allegedly was shot.
Has it been that long already?
Yeah. 3 months allegedly after. And did a civil war happen? No, it didn't. And it never will. It never will. Because again, you're not the kind of people that would do that. As I said on the Maximum Disfigurement episode. No, all that happened is she launched her influencing career. That's it. And that's what I hope my wife does if I'm ever murdered. I hope my wife launches her influencing career. Cavi, give me half a second. You say something for a minute.
I have to say something for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, no. What am I going to say? Okay, here's something I'm wondering. How is it that today, in the year of our Lord 2025, people are still testing positive for COVID? Like, I don't understand this. Who is taking the test? Like, if you get sick, and we've all gotten sick before, you wake up, your throat's kind of scratchy, your nose is running, and you feel terrible, and you go, oh, I'm sick. I guess I'll just take it easy and go back to bed, skip work. But why are people rushing out and being like, oh no, I better test myself for COVID? Because that makes no difference to how you treat yourself. It's not like you can test yourself and it goes, oh, you have COVID. Now I'm just walk down to the store and buy the magic COVID cure and I'm back to normal. It's exactly the same whether or not you test or not. So why are people buying these tests? Why are people taking these tests? I just don't get it.
Thank you. I agree with you. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's a good point. Can you still see Erika here in her glitter suit?
I can. And her pyrotechnics.
Her pyrotechnics. And I called this out basically day after he was allegedly shot. Again, as people have listened, I think if I was gambling again with angels, if I was up in heaven and they knew I was at a heavenly blackjack table where we made bets on what really happened in the world. And behind the screen is a semi-omniscient angel that has seen everything. I wouldn't put all my chips on him being dead. I just wouldn't. I don't know how many chips I keep behind, but I'd put some on him not being dead and it all being fake. But people mourn differently. And I called this out the day of, and I know people, this is why they do it though. You see, because if you start mocking this, you look like a bad person, or at least they can try to frame you as that. You say, how dare you? How dare you? Your husband died. It's the same thing they do with every single psyop. They always choose the most ridiculous, like, sob stories. And maybe sometimes they're true. A lot of times they're not. And then it looks like if you question it at all, you're a bad person. That's what they want you to do. You can't, because why would you? Oh, do you want more people to die? Is what they say all the time. Have some sympathy. Have some sympathy, they say. But here's what went through Erika Kirk's mind when she watched her husband get shot. She said, "My God, think of the likes." That's what went through her head. I can almost guarantee. She said, "My God, think of the likes."
The attention.
Think of how many people are gonna watch my Instagram reel. My dude, that's what went through her head as she watched blood splurt out of her husband's neck. That's what went through her head. And more power to her. Amen, sister. Amen, sister. Because people forget, I am quasi. I have one toe in the influencer world. I'm not popular enough to be considered a quote unquote influencer, but I have a toe there. I've talked with people, I message people that are influencers, and sometimes they come on my show and we talk with them. Not super often, because again, this isn't a super pop, but I'm at least around where I can get rejected by them sometimes, right? And I know kind of how they think. And the only thing that ever runs through any of their minds is how many views is this going to get? That's it. There is no other metric. There is no other metric to any choice in their life. When they make a political statement, be it for the left or the right, it is because in their internal calculus, they have said that saying this thing will get me the most attention. That's what they've said. They don't believe anything. There's no belief there at all.
Did you see the Ryan Long video? It might have even been Charlie Kirk's death. It was some kind of tragedy, and it was all about like the influencers trying to decide what kind of take they're going to have on it to like get maximum attention and also stay out of trouble. It's pretty funny.
I don't believe Tim Pool has been swatted even one time. He says
absolutely not.
He says I've been swatted like 7 times. If you got swatted, and swatting has that thing that happens occasionally. People call up the cops and they accuse you. They say, "My neighbor or this guy over here, we've heard gunshots," and you have to run. They try to get people to run there with the riot gear and whatever, and tear down your door and arrest you. And then you say, "Wait, I wasn't doing anything." Okay, if that happened once, maybe. Although, contrary to belief, most police jurisdictions in America are pretty good about being sure something is happening before they burst in there with guns blazing. Most of them are pretty good, actually, at that. They're not great at everything, There's corruption. They do some things wrong. Occasionally, they might make a mistake that big. But on the whole, they're pretty good at not just bursting in doors at random because someone called them. But maybe it happened once. It did not happen like 7 times. I don't believe anyone drove by his house and started shooting at him with a drive. He just says stuff because it gets attention. That's all.
On like clockwork, even like every so often it'll be like the views are going down, the money's going down, and all of a sudden it's another tragedy.
Yeah.
Someone shot at him, whatever.
Can you see my cursor? Does that show that on the screen?
Yep.
Good. This woman right here, all that went through her head ever when her husband was shot was, what pantsuit should I get? That's what happened. What pantsuit should I get? How sparkly can I be? Right? That's what went through her head. And she gets up there and she says, I forgive the person that murdered my husband. But damn it all, if you are critical of Israel, you're going to hell. And she does that. She doesn't even care about Israel. That's the thing. There's no care in this woman at all. It's just, she knows that if she says something good about Israel, Fox News will have her back. And if she says something bad, they won't. That's all. That is the extent of the calculation. She doesn't. Shabbat Shalom. She got up there and said, Charlie used to come home and say Shabbat Shalom. And whatever. That's it. She said, how glittery is my pantsuit going to be? She wasn't even, I was already picked this out. It was on the way to her house. She ordered it online. It was on the way to her house before she put her husband in the ground. Before she even thought about the funeral home. This pantsuit was purchased. And that's all. And I need you people to realize that. None of them, 0 of them, 0 people are genuine on the Twitter, on the Instagram, on the YouTube. They're just saying what they, and because, so a lot of them, like Candace Owens, she tried her damnedest to become a left-wing influencer. People forget she started off trying to do black outrage stuff and being like, Black Lives Matter in like 2014. It didn't take, for whatever reason. She was probably too attractive. She has a nice looking face. If you want to play the victim card, you can't be really attractive. It doesn't work. You have to look like a pity case. And so she couldn't play that game. But then she made a couple tweets that said, hey, black people should not be all against Donald Trump. And all the white people, the white boomers, were like, yeah, see, I'm not racist. Look, there's a black lady that thinks like me. And she went off to the races. And she's been saying whatever she thinks will get the most clicks ever since, no matter how absurd. And that is all that's happening. Okay? People mourn differently. Some people mourn by being sad, and some people mourn with a pyrotechnic display and a glittery pantsuit. And we can't judge that. This is just as much mourning as someone that has trouble getting out of bed every day because their loved one was brutally murdered in front of the entire world. That's what that would be. But this is mourning just the same. It's all mourning. There's no difference. And you're a bad person for thinking there is a difference. You're a bad person for thinking there's a difference. You're a bad person, Cavi. You're a bad person.
I'm pretty bad for many reasons.
You're a bad person for thinking this is weird. For thinking that recreating the tent where Charlie Kirk was shot at the TPUSA event so people could have a photo up there is gross. You're the bad person for thinking that's weird and gross. Not Erika Kirk. You're the bad person for thinking this is distasteful. Not Erika
I hadn't
Kirk.
seen that. That's kind of amazing.
It is amazing. All that mattered. What did Charlie Kirk live for? He lived for clicks, and that's it.
I see they got like a framed photo of him in the back there too.
I know. He lived for clicks. They took a photo from him right before he died, allegedly, and put it right there so you could take your photo under the same tent because clicks and your ring light here, and look at me. And that's it. That's it. Okay. And I know that sounds nihilistic, but it's freeing. You have to realize that human nature, and that's what human nature is. The people that are drawn to be successful on that level of being an influencer, you have to be willing to say whatever will get you the clicks. You can't follow your conscience. You can't say what's right or wrong. You have to say what makes the clicks. And that's all. Okay? And again, I don't even hate it. I find this sort of human being fascinating, funny, and I like to watch them. I love that level of insincerity. It's kind of endearing in a way, because this is just like I said about George Santos. While he was my favorite politician, still is, by the way. George, if you're out there, please come on the show. I've tried to reach out to him. He wants like a $200 to even message him. No, thank you. But you're not that famous, George. But he was the most honest politician, because you knew he was always lying, and that's worth something. The worst politician is someone that lies sometimes, because then you don't know, is this one a lie or is it not? With George Santos, you knew everything out of his mouth was not true, and that is honest. That's a form of honesty, because you can't believe any of it. The worst thing is like a George Bush, who gets up there and sometimes says something true, and then sometimes says something totally fabricated, and you don't know if you're going to war for which one. That's the worst. And so this is what Charlie Kirk, there was no civil war. There was no accountability. What you get is this. This is what you get. And that's what you will always get, which is why I've tried to encourage people this whole time, regardless of your ethnicity. Even if you are an Andrew Torba, or if you are a Guatemalan, or a black person, or an Indian, namaste. Namaste and collard greens to everyone. This is a place of love. But I've tried to teach you the Aryan way of you must do it yourself. You must do it yourself. You cannot, there is no field in which anyone is going to do it for you. You have to take care of your own life, and you have to not put your hopes and dreams in these people, because this is all that it comes to, is this. That's it. It's not going to come to anything. It's just another series of clicks, and that's all it will ever be. And you have to move past it. And you have to do that in a lot of ways, actually. I wish it wasn't so. I wish it wasn't so. I wish that we could live in a world where we had, I don't actually. I'm not a kind of person that would even follow a leader if we had a leader that was worth following. Because in the actual Aryan tradition, it's like, well, there's no one that's a better leader of me than me, which is how people that are actually that feel. And it's not a hatred thing. I want that for everybody. I want that for everybody. But that is because you always, always, always run into that. And this is why I try not to be, I try to encourage that in all of our listeners, because I don't want to be your cult leader. I want to teach you and to lead yourself. And that doesn't mean you can't get advice from people, listen to other people that have great ideas, all that, cooperate with each other. But at the end of the day, setting someone up on a pedestal and saying we're following him is almost always a path to ruin. It's almost always a path to ruin. And so Shabbat Shalom, as Erika Kirk claimed Charlie Kirk used to say. The peace of the Sabbath be upon you. It's fun.
Every Friday night.
Every Friday night. Namaste and collard greens to both the Indians and the Black Americans. We love you all. Everyone is welcome here. If you're a Nazi, if you're a transsexual, if you're a communist, if you're black, if you're white, if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're a Buddhist, if you're gay, if you whatever you are, you're all welcome here in this place. We all get together and we sing Kumbaya, but I'm just trying to tell you, if you put your trust in any of these people online, you're going to end up regretting it, and you may end up dead in the ditch. They may tell you to go storm the Capitol, and you'll end up in prison. They may tell you to go riot in the street because some person got shot, and then you'll end up on fire. They may tell you to go fight in Ukraine for some reason because, I don't know, Ukraine is Russia's insufficiently gay. I don't know, even though Ukraine was full of actual neo-Nazis, you have to go there to help them, and then you just get blown up. That's all they want for you. That's all they're going to get, and they won't care at all. And when you get blown up, you will just become a 5-second clip of some lady pretending to cry so she can get more clicks. That's all. That's all. That's all. Cabby, please, let's go into Christmas trivia. I'm ready for it. I'm excited. Should we sing a little? Oh, hold on. Let me do a jingle. I'll make a jingle for it. And here's the thing, guys. If you know the radio program that I am aping, I'm gonna do a jingle in the spirit of a jingle from another radio program from ages ago. And if you know what that radio program is, if you email in with the answer, you will get a free t-shirt if you're the first one the next time we create t-shirts for this podcast. If we ever do, it's a reward and promise. I don't know if we'll ever have. We once upon a time had t-shirts. We no longer have any. They were very expensive to run, and I think we lost $300. But if we ever have t-shirts again, I will remember your email if you have the right answer and you're the first one to emails in, and I will send you one for free. This is what. Okay, you ready? Are you ready, Cavi? After I do the jingle?
Yep.
Oh, Christmassy that. It's Christmas trivia. Okay, that's the jingle.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
It's a deep cut. It's a deep cut from radio. You'll have to. I'll be surprised if someone gets it, but go ahead.
Okay, so I got a thought exercise here for you to start out with. Since you're a writer.
Yeah, I am.
So I want you to.
Is my screen gone? Am I still sharing screen or no?
No, you're gone. It just says Sumo.
Good. Okay.
Okay, so I want you to imagine you're going to write a fictional genealogy.
Fictional genealogy. Okay.
So you can handle that. But I'm going to give you some rules. So your first rule is the number of words that you write has to be divisible by 7.
Wait, the number of words I write has to be divisible by 7. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So you think you can handle that, right?
Yeah, I can do that.
Not too bad. Okay. But the number of letters also has to be divisible by 7.
Okay, that's a bit trickier. Okay. Still can handle it though, but yeah.
And the number of vowels has to be divisible by 7.
Whew, okay.
And the number of consonants also have to be divisible by 7.
All right.
And the number of words that begin with a vowel, divisible by 7. And the number of words that begin with a consonant, also divisible by 7. The number of words that occur more than once has to be divisible by 7. The number of words that occur in more than one form, divisible by 7. The number of words that occur in only one form, divisible by 7. The nouns have to be divisible by 7, the total number of nouns. And only 7 words in the entire genealogy will not be nouns. The number of names has to be divisible by 7. The number of male names is divisible by 7. And the number of generations is divisible by 7. So that's pretty hard to do.
That'd be tough. That'd be tough to nail, yeah.
Yeah. So this hypothetical genealogy is actually the genealogy of Jesus that's found in Matthew chapter 1.
In what language?
And this written in Greek, which is very accurate.
Yeah, that is
very accurate. In English, you can kind of like fudge it a little bit, add filler words and stuff to kind of maybe make these rules, make the rules. But in Greek, it's a lot more complicated.
In the original Greek,
precise.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And also, to get even more complicated, all the letters in Greek have a numerical value. That's where you get the gematria stuff, calculations.
Sure.
So when we take the value of every letter in this genealogy and add them up, you get 42,364, which is divisible by 7.
Oh.
And you take the value of the different groups of letters, it's a multiple of 7. And basically, the statistics of that happening is pretty much impossible.
Yeah, it's like the number of, it's like the atoms of the universe kind of level of.
Yeah. And there's more crazy seven stuff too. Like when the angel is speaking in the Christmas story, 28 words divisible by seven, and the geometrical value is 52,605, which is divisible by seven. The part that talks about Jesus' childhood, 161 words divisible by seven. The letters, 896 divisible by seven. The gematria value again, 123, 529 divisible by seven. Pretty crazy.
Right.
So this was all discovered by a dude. His name was Dr. Ivan Panin. He was born in Russia, December 12th, 1855. He graduated Harvard with a PhD in math in 1882, and he discovered, they call them heptadic structures in the Bible. He discovered this in 1890, and he published, like, there's apparently the number seven just repeats in crazy ways like this all throughout the Bible. Yeah, he later died October 30th, 1942, but he's the guy who figured out all this crazy stuff.
That's really interesting because that really, it would be really hard without like it'd be super hard to do that without more modern mathematical to like see that. Like if that's true, he may be the first person to ever see it. Given these thousands of years of
Probably.
Christianity, like these hundreds of these many centuries. So
He had a PhD in math from Harvard.
Yeah, back when they used to do things.
Exactly.
Interesting. So seven is obviously a holy number for many reasons. As we talked about a few shows ago, seven is the number of visible planets with your eye, if you include planet as any moving celestial body, which includes the sun and moon. So you can see five of the what we consider planets and the sun and moon with your naked eye without a telescope. So that's which is why we have 7 days of the week and why each one's named for one of those planets. Sunday, Mondays for the moon, and so forth and so on. Saturn being the last one. Saturn is the one furthest out that you can see, and it's still the Sabbath. This is the last day of the week. So why would you do that?
Yeah, seven. Seven is also in the Bible. It's like the number of perfection, and it symbolizes God.
Yeah, but like that's a crazy. Okay, so are we saying then is what we're saying that this is? Would Matthew have done this? It was Matthew, right? The book of Matthew.
Yeah.
Okay. Would Matthew have done this? Are we thinking Matthew did this intentionally?
No, he didn't. This is like God inspiring him to write that.
Okay. Do you think he even recognized that's what he was doing?
Probably not.
And that would go a long way to explaining some of the ways that it, because the genealogy of Jesus like skips people. And it doesn't list every.
Yeah,
we're gonna
get into that more in a minute.
Okay, well, continue then, because this is very people that think numerology isn't real. You're wrong.
Oh yeah, there's crazy like numerology stuff in the Bible.
I don't know. That's the thing. Numerology messes with me because I don't understand why it's done, but it's clearly done by conspiracy people in weird positions of power, and God himself. I don't understand why it's done. Yeah. It's a thing that's kind of crazy to me, but it's clearly happening.
Well, in this case, I think it's more like God authenticating his message here, because that's just something that a human could not do that on their own.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, so there's actually two genealogies for Jesus.
It's kind of like a checksum in the Bible, in a way. I mean,
almost, yeah.
It's a weird. That's crazy. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, there's two genealogies. There's the one in Matthew, and then there's another one in Luke. Yes. So Matthew, he's Jewish, and he emphasizes Jesus's Jewishness. So his genealogy starts at Abraham, and Luke is a doctor, and he emphasizes more Jesus's humanity. So he starts his genealogy at Adam.
Right. Okay.
So starting off from Luke, and I'll just take a side note here because this is one of my favorite things hidden in the Bible here, is the first 10 generations. You have Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah.
How fun of a name is Mahalalel?
Yeah, a lot of these names are pretty fun. Arphaxad, Abinadab,
Yeah.
But yeah, so when you read a genealogy like this, most people just kind of gloss over it. But when you take the meaning of the names, you have Adam means man, Seth means appointed, because after Cain slew Abel, they say like God has appointed me another son named Seth. Enosh means mortal. Kenan means sorrow. Mahalalel means the graceful God. Yared means shall come down. And people think that he's named that because that's when the Watchers came down and had all the Nephilim adventures.
Uh-huh.
Um, Enoch means teacher. Methuselah, his name means his death shall bring, which is interesting because the flood was prophesied to happen when Methuselah died. So that's kind of why Methuselah is the oldest living person in the Bible, is because God was withholding his judgment as long as possible. And then you have Lamech means the suffering, and Noah means like comfort or rest. So when you take all the names together, you get man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the graceful God shall come down, teaching that his death shall bring the suffering, comfort, and rest. And you have the Christian gospel hidden in like Genesis chapter 5, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean that's something that you couldn't. Yeah, that's something you couldn't really do, could you? That's like has to be
Nope.
what.
And you have the whole Old Testament, especially Genesis, is translated into the Septuagint translation into Greek, like hundreds of years before Jesus was even born.
Yeah.
So nobody conspired to like hide that there.
Right, because it was the result of a translation. Ugh, that's really hard. That's really deep. And it goes to show you people that are like, this is my big qualm with people being like, we don't need to read the Bible ourselves. Someone else can. It's more than just a book. It's like crazy. The longer you get into it, it's like this is something really, really, really weird is happening in these pages.
Yeah, and everything kind of references each other, even though it's like all these different books written by different guys over thousands of years.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep getting weird.
Okay, other holy books don't do that, and I'm not no shade, but if you read the Book of Mormon, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. It's a fun little romp adventure story, but it's not nearly that. It's not nearly that. Quran similarly, it doesn't have that same level of interconnectedness and all these like numerology things in it and so forth and so on. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So, anyways, Luke's after Noah, Luke's genealogy goes through Shem, Arphaxad, blah 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 blah, all the way to Terah, to Abraham, and that's where Matthew's genealogy starts. And then for a while there, both genealogies are the same. They go from Abraham all the way down to David, King David.
Mhm.
And we're going to take a detour here, and we're going to talk about why was Jesus born in Bethlehem. And the reason for that is because of Ruth. If you're familiar with the story of Ruth, it's like a tiny little 4-chapter sort of love story in the Old Testament. And Ruth is actually surprisingly important and could also be a whole other topic for a future episode, probably, because it's very important for understanding the book of Revelation, surprisingly enough, and Jesus' role as something called the kinsman redeemer.
Okay.
But
yes.
that's going to be like another whole topic. But Ruth basically links the line of David to Bethlehem. And in the Christmas story, when you hear about the shepherds that are in the field, it's very likely that they're out in the same fields that belong to Boaz and Ruth.
Mm-hmm. All right, say that
So
again. Say it one more time.
when the shepherds in the Christmas story are out watching their flocks by night or whatever it says, very likely that those fields that they're in used to belong to Boaz and Ruth.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Because Boaz was like a pretty big businessman, pretty wealthy back then, and owned a lot of land and animals and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
so here's an interesting thing hidden here. At the end of the Ruth story, like in chapter 4, somebody makes a comment saying, "May your house be like Pharaoh's." So the actual, I've got the verse here. It says, somebody is, it almost sounds like you're doing a toast at a wedding. He says, may the Lord make the women who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman. May your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. So you read that and you just kind of think, okay, well that's like a nice sort of wedding toast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But who is Perez and what is this about Tamar and Judah? So this is really weird. This is referring to a story back in Genesis 38, where Tamar has an illegitimate son from Judah, which is her father-in-law.
Yep. Yeah, you go ahead. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a kind of gross
basically,
story.
It kind of is. And so when you know that and somebody says, may your house be like Perez, if you know the story, it would be kind of like, hey, what the heck, man? Like, this is my
sounds
wedding.
Like an insult.
Yeah. So the short version of this story is Tamar was originally married to Judah's first son, who was wicked, and then God killed him. So they had a custom called levirate marriage, where you would be given to the wife would be given to the next brother, and was supposed to create an heir to inherit like the previous family's stuff. So she was given to Onan, who also displeased God and was killed. Judah promises that he'd give his youngest son Shelah to her when he came of age, but then he never did. Right. So Tamar goes and she dresses herself up as a prostitute and seduces Judah. And they're talking about payment, and Judah's like, "Oh, I'll give you some animals." And she's like, "Well, how am I going to know you're going to keep my word? I'm not born yesterday." So she asks for his signet, his bracelet, and his staff, and she gives it to him as kind of like proof of payment. So later, you give this back to me, and I'll give you your payment. Judah later learns she's pregnant. He gets super angry, and then she's like, "Well, hey, here's your signet, bracelet, and staff." And then he realizes that it's his child, and he says, "She is more righteous than I," which is kind of a weird thing to do.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, to recap, what happened in the story is this lady marries the guy. He's killed because he's wicked. She's given to his brother. He also dies because he's wicked. This is where onanism comes from, because he, quote, spills his seed on the ground rather than inside her. I guess no one wanted to impregnate this lady. I don't know why.
So Onan pulled out basically because he didn't want to create a child who would get the inheritance. He wanted the inheritance for himself.
Yeah, that's right. And so then she's promised this. The underage weirdness went both ways. It wasn't just marrying off underage girls. She is there. It's like, well, when my third son is old enough to marry, you can have him. But presumably, as he got older, he was like, I don't want her. She's like twice my age. So it never happened. And then she veils herself like where you can't see her face, and goes and sit, and he's out like going shopping around for prostitutes. And he does exactly what you said, and it ends up impregnating his daughter-in-law.
And the important thing too here is if when he says like she's more righteous than I, what she did isn't right, but
right.
He didn't do his duties, and if Tamar hadn't done what she did, that would have been the end of the messianic line right there.
Right.
So, anyways, she ends up having twins, and the one baby sticks out his hand first, and then they tie a red thread around it, but then he pulls the hand back in, and Phares comes out first, and they exclaim, "Oh man, you've broken out!" And they named him Phares, which means breach or breaking through. But now here's an interesting thing here, because back to the wedding toast. In Deuteronomy 23, verse 2, it says, "A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord until his 10th generation." So we go back to the genealogy. And from Perez, you have Perez, Hezron, Ram, Abinadab, Nahshon, Salmon, Boaz, Obed, Jesse, and David. Exactly 10 generations later, you get King David. So that line, "May your house be like Perez," is a prophecy. And it shows that God had planned for David to be king way at the beginning. You kind of get the idea that the Israelites grumbled and complained, "Oh, we want a king like all the other countries." And God was like, "Fine, here's Saul." But no, God had planned for David to be king from the very beginning.
Right. See, the genealogy, people skip over. The genealogies can be the most interesting parts. You just have to do math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
So now we've reached David.
Okay. Thank you.
And for Matthew's genealogy, he goes all the way through the royal line, goes through Solomon, Rehoboam, and so forth. What happens with Israel is that Israel as a country very quickly after Solomon splits into two countries, Israel and Judah. Israel is very evil and basically gets wiped out, and there's nothing left from that.
Which is why they're not called Israelites and they become called Jews, because they're from Judah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Judah continues on for a while, but gets worse and worse and worse and worse until you get to a king named Jehoiakim. And Jehoiakim gets so bad that God pronounces a blood curse on him. In Jeremiah 22, verse 30, it says, "This is what the Lord says, record this man as if childless, a man who will not prosper in his lifetime. For none of his offspring will prosper, none will sit on the throne of David or rule anymore in Judah." So at this point, you have to imagine Satan and his forces kind of celebrating here because it looks like God shot himself in the foot. Because he said that the Messiah would rule on the throne of David. But now he's pronounced a blood curse on the line and said none of them are going to sit on the throne of David.
Right.
So how is God going to get around this? And you can almost like imagine God like winking at the angels and being like, "Hey, watch this."
Right.
So anyways, Matthew's genealogy continues down through the royal line all the way up to Joseph, who is the legal father of Jesus, in quotes. Now, we'll flip over to Luke's genealogy. Luke's genealogy detours at this point and goes from David through his second son, Nathan. Nathan's the second son of Bathsheba. And it kind of goes through a completely different route. But there's two guys. It kind of detours back into Matthew's genealogy for two guys, Salathiel and Zerubbabel. And then it kind of goes through different kids from them, all the way to Heli, which is Mary's father, and then to Mary. So now we have Heli has Mary, and Heli didn't have any sons. So he only has Mary. I don't know if she had sisters, but he definitely didn't have any sons. And the problem here is when you don't have any sons, the inheritance in ancient Israel passed through the male line.
Uh-huh.
So Mary's children wouldn't have any inheritance from her father. So we're going to detour all the way back to an exception that was made way back in with Moses. There's something called the daughters of Zelophehad, and it's an exception on the rules of inheritance. Basically, this guy Zelophehad had 5 daughters, and he was like, "Well, how are they going to inherit stuff, right? Because I don't have any sons." Mm-hmm. So they go to Moses in Numbers 27, and they ask him what to do, and Moses goes to God, and God says, "Make an exception." And then later, that exception is granted by Joshua after they conquer Canaan. The daughters come to Joshua and they're like, "Hey, check the records when they're dividing up all the inheritance of the land and say there's this exception for us. We get to inherit this land." So the way this works is if the daughters marry within the tribe, their sons can inherit from the fathers. So basically, the way this works is the woman's husband ends up being adopted by her father, and then that way he can technically inherit the father's stuff, and then that way the inheritance goes through the husband to the children of the woman.
Okay.
So this is how you get around that blood curse, because Joseph, the son-in-law of Heli, Mary's father, ends up being adopted by Mary's father. And that way, Jesus can inherit the line of David through Mary and through Joseph, the legal father. But at the same time, with the virgin birth, you get around that blood curse.
Yeah, that's intense. That's intense.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of work and legwork to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is why people mock like the sovereign citizen stuff that I talk about, but it's actually like these the universe is bound by essentially contracts, just like that. Just like there's curses and blessings and things have to happen. And if you know what those are and you understand them, you can use them to your advantage and get around a lot of stuff. And you realize that a lot of stuff people threaten you with can't actually happen if you don't agree to it. All right, continue, Cabby, if you have any more.
Well, so that's pretty much it.
Okay.
One more note on the virgin birth is a lot of people, it's prophesied in Isaiah, and a lot of people argue or they're like, oh, the word in Hebrew is Alma and it means maiden and it's not necessarily virgin and blah, 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 blah. But Isaiah was translated into Greek for the Septuagint translation again, hundreds of years before Jesus, and it's very clear in the Greek translation that they meant virgin.
Yes. Also, with the virgin birth, this is weird. The virgin birth was taken to mean the actual birth would be virginal, by which I mean people think it means virgin conception, like you just she was impregnated without sex, which yes, but also the reason the song is Silent Night, holy, no crying he makes, is because they said there was also physical virginity intact, which is really weird, and no one wants to.
Yeah, I don't know about that, and I don't think there's anything specifically in the Bible though that claims that.
There's not. This is the church fathers' take.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not you think that they're valid, another thing. But as far as I know, there's nothing in the Bible that prophesies this. But this is the church fathers' take, and they get this from that basically Jesus was born with the hymen intact because he, to quote, I think maybe not St. Gregory, maybe St. Gregory, I don't remember. One of them said, Christ passed through Mary as light passes through glass, because the reasoning went, well, what are the consequences of the fall? You have to work and pain in childbirth, right? And so if he's sinless, then not going to cause pain in childbirth. Take it or leave it, but that is where the virgin birth it specifically was tied to the birth and not just the conception, and a physical concept of virginity, which we've largely lost in our day and age. But that's what it is. Take it or leave it if you want to. That was good, Cavi. I enjoyed learning all of that interesting things. You're like a Bible scholar.
I got another topic.
All right, go for it.
I just watched Bible Scholars on YouTube.
Okay.
So the other topic I want to talk about that people don't really know the background behind is the three wise men.
Oh yeah.
This is also another thing.
Here's a trivia question for everyone. You can send this in. Be honest. Don't look it up. And when you email us, tell us what you actually thought. What are the three wise men's names traditionally? I'll give you a minute.
And I'm going to mention those later in this talk.
Okay. Let's give them 5 seconds. Ready? Begin your answers. Begin your answers. Okay, here we go. Casper, Melchior, and Balthazar. All right, continue, Cabby.
Correct. Okay, so this is another topic that people don't really understand or know the background, because it's actually, there's a lot going on here that people don't get. So to understand kind of what's going on, we got to start by looking at the different empires that took over this area throughout history. Starting with the Babylonian Empire, which was from 606 to 539 BC. And they basically take over Israel. And this is where you have Daniel, as in Daniel in the lion's den.
Sure. And
in 539 BC, the empire is taken over by the Persians. And the Persian Empire goes from 539 BC to 332 BC. And Daniel is kind of such like a good at his job. He rises to prominence in both empires. Now, in the Persian Empire, there's this group of people called the Magi. And they were kind of like a hereditary priesthood among the Medes. And Daniel later actually gets appointed to be the boss of this priesthood. Darius the Great, king of Persia, liked Daniel so much that he put him in charge, even though technically it's supposed to be hereditary. And the current Magi obviously didn't like that. And this might have been what led to the whole lion's den incident and why they tried to get rid of Daniel.
Okay.
So the Magi's, their key skill was called oneromancy, which is like dream interpretation. They
Okay.
weren't into astrology like you might think.
That's my key skill, by the way. I'm very good at dream interpretation.
Oh. So Darius eventually recognizes that these guys are good at what they do, possibly because of what Daniel did also. And the Magi get attached to the court and established as the state religion of Persia. They basically become this sort of combination of priest and magistrate, and that's actually where we get the word magistrate, is from the Magi.
Oh, interesting.
They,
Okay.
yeah, they were not followers of Zoroaster, like you would think, and they had a lot of similarities with the religion of ancient Israel. They had a monotheistic concept of one beneficent creator who was the author of all good and was opposed by a malevolent evil spirit. They were a mediator between God and man by virtue of a blood sacrifice. Similar concepts of clean and unclean animals, and overall, yeah, very similar to ancient Israel. They were kind of like the priestly caste during the following empires, the Seleucid, Parthian, and Sasanian periods. Persia later falls to the Greek Empire after Alexander the Great kind of conquers everything. And it regains its independence later as the dominant, the Magi kind of become the dominant ruling group in the Parthian Empire later on.
Okay.
And with their basically, they're kind of like government officials. They got the two jobs together. And one of their main duties includes electing the king of the empire. So they kind of get together and they decide who's going to be king. And they become basically like the supreme priestly caste of the Parthian Empire.
Okay.
So going back to the empire. So after the Persian Empire comes the Greek Empire, 332 to 68 BC. Alexander the Great dies, and the empire gets divided among four of his generals: Cassandra, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. And Seleucus kind of takes over this area, and it's kind of like a Seleucus empire, I guess. But later, the Romans take over from 68 BC to 476 AD. But while Rome is kind of like making its mark on the world, the remnants of the Persian Empire become what's called the Parthian Empire, and this lasts from about 250 BC to 224 AD. Now, the Parthian Empire was surprisingly like pretty big. It's basically all of what's like Iran and Afghanistan, and kind of expanded. It's basically from the Euphrates River to the Indus River, and then from the north to south, from the Amu Darya River to the Indian Ocean. And
that is big.
It's kind of a giant, it's kind of like a giant rival to Rome. And it had several successful wars against it. And you have Judea as kind of smack in the middle of Rome and Parthia. So Pompey, who was the first Roman conqueror of Jerusalem, fought against a Parthian outpost in Armenia in 63 BC, and he loses. In 55 BC, Crassus attacks Parthia after sacking Jerusalem, and they lose again. They lose like 30,000 troops and their commander. And then the Parthians counterattack and kind of invade Armenia, Syria, and Palestine. So now Judea is essentially under Parthian rule for a little while. Then Antipater, who's the father of Herod, he reestablishes Roman rule, but then the Parthians invade again in 40 BC, and he retreats. And then Mark Antony comes back in and reestablishes Roman sovereignty in 37 BC. He tries to invade Parthia again and gets defeated again. So then he retreats. Another wave of Parthians come in. They completely kick all the Romans out of Palestine, including Herod himself, who escapes to Alexandria and then to Rome. So Parthia is a pretty serious empire, and they're not to be messed with. And at this point, on paper, Rome owns Judea, but Parthia is really in charge. The Jews collaborate with Parthia, and they get the Jewish sovereignty. It's restored in Jerusalem. The Romans appoint Herod as the king of the Jews, but for 3 years he can't even go there because it's just too dangerous. It takes an entire 5-month siege for the Romans to basically reclaim Jerusalem, and then Herod is finally able to occupy his own capital city. So at this point, you have Herod. he's basically stuck ruling over this rebellious buffer state between two giant empires that are kind of not friendly with each other.
Sure.
At any time, his own subjects could conspire with Parthia again and bring them in, and you could have another whole rebellion on their hand.
It makes sense why he did what he did with why he was so worried about Jesus then and the
Oh yeah,
king of the Jews being born. He's like, well, I can't have this in this environment.
yeah. So Herod, he's not Jewish. He's actually an Edomite, and he's only king because he was appointed by Romans.
Right.
And now back in Rome, Caesar Augustus, he's getting old, so he's going to die soon. The commander of their military, Tiberius, he's retired. They don't have an experienced military commander at the moment. Armenia is starting to plan a revolt against Rome, and then they accomplish that later. And then also over in Parthia, there's also problems. Their king at the time is Phraates IV. He's very unpopular and he's getting old. He'd been deposed once, and very likely that the Magi were in the process of choosing his successor. So basically, at this point, all of this stuff is going on. We got all these crazy politics. Magi show up in Jerusalem, and it's not just three guys with camels. These are basically very important government officials from a rival empire, and they probably showed up with a full military escort, because the Bible says the whole city of Jerusalem was upset, and that wouldn't have happened with just three guys.
Guys coming in the night quietly, yeah.
Yeah, for all the people know, they could have been taking advantage of the Parthian king's unpopularity to establish a new dynasty.
Right.
So, going over to Matthew chapter 2, they say, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So basically, this powerful nearby empire just sent a huge entourage to chase down somebody who was born king of the Jews. And Herod's definitely not happy about this with all the politics. And it's doubly insulting to him because Herod's not Jewish and he's been appointed by Rome. And they're like, where's the one born king of the Jews? So it's a huge insult to his authority.
Right.
So continuing on in Matthew, and when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded where the Christ should be born. And they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for it is written by the prophet, and lo, Bethlehem in the land of Judah art the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor, and that shall rule over the people of Israel. So that's quoting Micah 5:2. So Herod calls the wise men, asks them what time the star appeared, sent them to Bethlehem and said, go search for the young child, and you found him, bring me word again so I can worship him. And they head off. And of course, basically, he wants to kill them because they're going to be a rival for his authority. And that's why he sends out instructions to kill everyone. He finds out, when did you see the star? Okay, he counts back. We're going to kill everybody who's like 2 years and younger.
Right.
So going back to Matthew, when they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And they opened their treasures, presenting him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So right away, we don't know how much time has passed because they mention they came into the house. So they're obviously not in a cave with a bunch of animals and a manger and everything anymore. So we don't know quite how old Jesus is, but this has been some time past after he's been born.
Sure.
And this is where the three gifts is where everybody gets the idea that there were three guys, but we have no idea. There could have been 20 guys, 100 guys. There could have been other gifts. We don't know.
Right.
So they give the gifts, and it kind of ends here and says, and being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed to their own country another way, which is interesting because their skill is on neuromancy. So God communicates to them with a way that they're familiar with through a dream.
Right.
So the gifts are all prophetic. The gold represents his deity. Frankincense represents his priesthood because that was something that was used in priestly duties at the temple. And myrrh represents his death because that's used as an ointment in burial. And then, so that's like the official story of what happened with the wise men. over the coming centuries, then we get a whole bunch of traditions kind of start. Eastern Orthodox start saying that there's 12 of them, and they have 12 days of Christmas. In the 3rd century, the wise men become kings bearing gifts, possibly because it's based on Psalm 72, which talks about kings bringing Jesus gifts, but that's probably referring to the millennium. In the 6th century, they sent Balthazar, Melchior, and Gaspar. In the 7th century, they become representatives of Asia, Africa, and Europe, but this kind of ignores the fact that they're all Medes from Persia. And then in the 14th century, the Armenian church decides that Balthazar is the king of Arabia, Melchior is the king of Persia, and Gaspar is the king of India. But that's all not exactly biblical.
Right.
And then the last thing here I'll just touch on is what was the star that they followed? And a lot of people think that it was some kind of planetary conjunction. There's Kepler first suggested that there was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the constellation of Pisces in 7 BC, but that's too early, and apparently Josephus quoted the wrong date. But that kind of gets into the people start thinking that's what happened. But another interesting idea, though, is that what if this isn't a natural phenomenon? Because the Bible specifically mentions it moved along and settled over a specific location.
Right.
So what if it's the Shekinah, the pillar of fire by night and the cloud by day that led the Israelites through the wilderness, or the flames of Pentecost, basically the physical form of the Holy Spirit leading them along the way?
That's a very interesting idea. Yeah. Fascinating.
We don't know, but yeah.
Fascinating stuff. I loved it. I hope our listeners loved it too. Cavi's full of these things. He has a boundless knowledge. So great. Everyone, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. I think we're going to close it out with I'm going to sing a Christmas carol to all of our lovely friends to have a Merry Christmas. Before I do that, I want to remind everyone, sign up for the Patreon, sign up for the Gumroad, sign up for the Substack of the Mystical American Patriot Society, and sign up for my personal Substack, Holy is He Who Wrestles. Links are all in the descriptions and the show notes, because you get all the good stuff, and you get to read a lot of my writing, much of which is free. Some of it's behind a paywall, but most of it is free. My most recent one, which is free, is called In Defense of Violence. And people have described it with these adjectives in my comments and quotations about it. Beautiful. They've described it as beautiful. They described it as simply brilliant. Another person described it as, let's see here, shocking. Someone described it as transgressive, compelling, intoxicating, horrific, and vivifying, which is that's a lot. Banger. Someone said it was masterful in all caps. And this is my favorite. Seems prophetic level of writing, not in a foretelling the future kind of way, but in a biblical prophet telling God's thoughts kind of way. And that's true. It was a really good, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm very good at that. And I think people should check it out, and it will help you in a lot of things, because that's what we're here to do. This is Love's Home on the internet. We are here to get people away from fear, away from all kinds of hatred. We're here away from confusion, to cut through all the Gordian knots of confusion that people have laid down for you. And it is a place for everyone. And so we'll finish. Do you know Good King Wenceslas, Cavi?
I do.
You do? I'm going to sing
I know classic Christmas songs.
Yeah. I'm going to sing it for everyone, and then we'll close out. You can join in if you want. I don't know how well that'll work with the lag of the thing, but here we go. Everyone sing with me in your car or wherever you're. I assume most people listen in their cars, because that's when most people listen to podcasts, but maybe you listen while doing, I don't know. Tell us how you listen. Write in and tell us how you listen, because maybe you do dishes. Maybe but statistically, most people listen to podcasts in their car. Good King Wenceslas last looked out on the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel. When a poor man came inside, gathering winter fuel. Hither, page, and stand by me, if thou know its telling. Yonder peasant, who is he? Where and what his dwelling? Sir, he lives a good league hence, underneath the mountain, right beside the forest fence, by St. Agnes' fountain. Bring me flesh and bring me wine, bring me pine logs hither. Thou and I will see him dine, when we bear them thither. Page and monarch, forth they went together, through the rude wind's wild lament, and the bitter weather. Sire, the night is darker now, and the wind blows stronger. Fills my heart, I know not how, I can go no longer. Mark my footsteps, my good page, tread thou in them boldly. Thou shalt find the winter's rage, freeze thy blood less coldly. In his master's steps he trod, where the snow lay dinted. Heat was in the very sod, which the saint had printed. Therefore, Christian men, be sure, wealth or rank possessing, ye who now shall bless the poor, shall yourselves find blessing. Merry Christmas, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you before the new year. Love to all.